Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm really excited to have two good friends of mine on. So we have Araminta and Felicia Hester, and they are co-chairs of St. David's Foundation's annual fundraising event, Toast of the Town. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how you raise a lot of money with a lot of wide community impact through smaller, more intimate events, because those can be really powerful when done correctly. And what makes Toast of a Town so special and unique is that they do quite a few of these parties over about a 30-day or a month-long stretch in Austin every year. And they're always really fun with lots of different themes and stuff. And we're going to get into it with Araminta and Felicia here. So with that, Araminta, Felicia, welcome. And I'm just so thrilled you're both here today.
Thank you. We're thrilled to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, Araminta, why don't you share with us a little bit about the mission of the St. David's Foundation?
Sure. Well, the mission of the foundation is to advance health equity in Central Texas through investment and action. And the foundation's vision is really to create a vibrant and inclusive community where every individual can flourish and reach their full potential.
That's fantastic. And I know that, and we're going to get into a little bit about the foundation a little bit and kind of how you all achieve that, because there's really some unique things that you all do that I just think are amazing. But before we do that, I want to hear, because every single person gets to an organization and volunteering their time. And with you two, this is the second year in a row you're co-chairing it. So you clearly care quite a bit about this, about this organization. So, Felicia, I'd love to start with you. Tell me of how you initially got involved with this organization and what's made you continue to be involved at such a deep level for a long period of time.
Well, it's very interesting because I came about it from a very different standpoint. Initially, I've been on a board of another nonprofit that actually St. David's Foundation is a big part of supporting that organization. So really going through that way, my husband and I have been supporters of Toast of the Town for decades. And then now I'm on the committee. And that's been a very different aspect because I've always been on the front end versus the behind the scenes. So it's been just the work they do and the impact that they have in the Central Texas is really unparalleled. They help so many nonprofits achieve the overall wellness of our communities that it's easy to say yes to an organization that does so much.
Absolutely. So, one question I had for you, Felicia, if I may, is, talk about like what you had said, what it's different, kind of on the front lines versus behind the scenes, planning it. Like, what's one thing you kind of learned about yourself, maybe from a leadership perspective, having, led this committee for the last couple of years?
Well, I joined the committee and I was co-chair of
Oh,
joining
so
the committee. So this is
you
year
jumped in.
two on the
Wow.
committee and co-chairing. What I have learned, though, in this aspect is this is a well-oiled machine. There have been individuals on this committee that have been on this committee for 40 years. And then there's those that come along and do that process. So really, it's always about meshing what you know will work, which is the institutional knowledge of having people that have been here for 40 years, and then the newness of people coming on saying, what about this? I know this. And as much as Austin has grown, you have to have the balance between what does work and what is new and fresh and really blend that together. And I think that's what Araminta and I really thrive on, is putting those components together and really helping the committee look at it from those fresh set of eyes, yet be true to your roots because we know that it's worked. It's been successful for that many years. You want to add some sparkle in there, you want to add some newness, but you also want to make sure that you pay homage to what has worked.
I love that blending of the old and the new, and especially if you're listening and living in a city that's grown or evolved. And certainly since this event started 42 years ago, Austin's a very different city now than it was then. So that's very sage advice, Felicia. And Araminta, I'd love to hear how you initially got involved with Toast of the Town.
Sure. My husband and I started attending parties as sponsors, and a couple of years into that, a friend pulled me onto the committee, and a few years after that, here we are co-chairing it. So Thrilled to be doing it with my good friend Felicia, and like she said, it's great to have such institutional knowledge with some of our committee members, and then have those new, fresh eyes that know all the latest and greatest new places in town, and you kind of mix that the old and the new, and it just works really well.
That's fantastic. And what made you decide, you said you were on the committee before, you chaired. So unlike Felicia, you had some committee background. What made you say, yes, I will step up and be a co-chair? Because, being a committee member is one thing, being a co-chair is a whole different, is a whole different beast altogether.
Sure. Well, the best thing about Toast is the staff at the foundation. They made it so easy to say yes to co-chairing. Sometimes when you're just in a group of volunteers, it's a lot of work to make things go, and to have the staff of the foundation just be the constant. Every time we meet, they're prepared. They've got our materials ready. They're helping us organize and get everything together. It's just you couldn't say no. It's just so easy to say yes, and the work that the foundation does to support students makes it all worth it.
So you heard it here first, everybody. When an organization is well run and well put together, it is easy for people to step up and say yes because they feel like they have a partner and they're not doing everything for the organization. And I think that's a lot of reasons sometimes people are afraid to be a chair is you need, as we'll paraphrase what Felicia said, instead of institutional knowledge, institutional strength of an organization to bring that together. And this all benefits a really, really, really good cause, and that's the Neil Kosuric Foundation. So Felicia, talk a little bit about that foundation, which is the beneficiary of the Toast parties.
So the Neil Kosuric Scholarship Program was named after Neil Kosuric, who was the past president and CEO of St. David's Foundation. And really, it is to support um, to create, opportunities for students to join in the healthcare profession. And as you stated earlier, Austin has changed so dramatically in the last 40 years that to create health equity, which is to follow the mission of St. David's Foundation, you have to have a constant new stream of individuals coming into the medical profession. So this is really that second part of the foundation's goal is to make sure that our community has enough healthcare workers. And that's from medical techs up to doctors, dentistry, vision, every aspect, even administration. So it is really about creating opportunities for all types of students. And lots of them are first time college goers in their families. So people that never thought that they could join the medical community in a bigger way have this opportunity now because there's no financial barrier for them to join in this field and add their own insights from their backgrounds into how do we serve our very diverse community well.
And
So well said. Araminta, please go ahead.
oh, I just have to add in that something your listeners may not know is that the Neil Kosuric Scholarship is the largest healthcare scholarship program in the entire state of Texas. It's huge, and its impact is so immense. High school seniors from a 5-county area, Travis County, and those that are contiguous, the students can apply as seniors and get these scholarships. And not only can they get them for $7,500 for a year, they can renew that scholarship for up to 8 years. So this could be $60,000 toward funding their undergrad and grad educations. And that is so impactful. It's really a life-changing scholarship for a lot of these students.
Well, it's life changing. And that's really, and Felicia, I think you would use that word as well. I mean, it really is life changing for, especially for someone who's maybe the first in their family to go to college. It gives them a leg up, but two, it's benefiting the community directly. And if I'm not mistaken, the students who receive it, they have to go to school in Texas, correct? Am I
That is
correct in
correct.
understanding that?
Yes.
So you're saying, you know what, you can come home to Austin, you can go elsewhere within the state walls, but we kind of want you to come back here and just kind of be within the state. So it really It's just amazing, and it awes me every time, especially every year when I go to a toast party and you hear one of these students speak at them. You really just see the impact so organically in a way that in a way that very few organizations are able to do.
Well, and to continue on your what you just said, it's because it's not only about the funding. They are paired with a mentor within the program, so they are really wrapped around these students to see them have that success, and they're continually looking at ways. St. David's Foundation is really great about looking at ways. Do we do that directly by giving those funds there? Do we do it for a 529? So if your computer breaks, you're able to also create that space for that. So it's such a holistic, and again, that's what the whole point of St. David's Foundation is, this holistic approach to healthcare. And when people are healthy, from mental to physical to emotionally, we're all going to be successful.
Very, very, very well said. And you've both hinted at this, and and this is kind of, I kind of want to kind of get into the leadership portion of this here. What is the key to a good relationship? Because you and I agree, Kara and her team. I mean, Kara's been here forever. I don't know, like she's literally an institution there. While we're on that word again. But talk about what the key is to a good relationship, because it's one thing to say, the organization's great, but what are some keys to having a good relationship between the event chairs and an organization? And Araminta, feel free to go first with this one.
Sure. Well, there's probably more than one key, but I think it's important for the event chairs certainly to be familiar with the organization and have a really good working relationship with the team as well as with volunteers. You have to have an ability to lead a team, especially with volunteers. And I think event chairs have a lot of leeway, but you have to be able to motivate and inspire your volunteers and also recognize and appreciate the work that they're putting in as well. So I always think of John Maxwell as a leadership author, and he says, one is too small a number to achieve greatness. We need a team to collaborate with and grow ideas and plan the work.
Rome wasn't built in a day, and a gala or a fundraiser is the same way. You need many, many souls. Felicia, do you have anything to add, or your take on kind of what you think is valuable between a good relationship between an organization and an event chair?
Well, really, again, it's just that complete support. So the note taking, the coming up and going, here's your agenda. I mean, it seems I don't want to use a word that doesn't really reflect how I feel, but it's all of the details from meeting to meeting that are brought back up that are, here's where we left off. And that's a skill set that not everybody has, or they just assume you're going to remember that information. And most of us have many committees that we're working on, many things in our lives going on. So the staff really sends to Araminta and I, here's where we are, this is what we're doing, this is it. And that again allows us to go in fully prepared to then talk about what it is and be able to pull out those small details that came up from the last meeting. And again, when you're working on 20 different events, that's a lot of details. That's a lot of people's inputs. So keeping up with who's doing what and when and where takes that whole team, and they are the absolute best at it. Hands down, being on other committees, great organizations, but this group has to look at the details at such a granular level when you're doing not just one event, 20 in a month's time.
That is a lot. And I'm glad we're bringing, I'm glad you brought that up, because that really is, I mean, if you think about it, over 42 years, we're talking 800 plus events. I mean, that's a lot of events. So, and the other thing from a leadership perspective is, because this is the second year, and I always like asking this question I don't get to do, this is why this is such a joy to do today. I don't get to do a lot of episodes with second year chairs. So I always like asking this question, because you always learn from the first year with the second year. So Araminta, I'd love for you to go first. What is something you learned last year that you're going to adjust and modify this year, just based on kind of what you saw chairing last year?
Well, it was fun to actually visit with guests at the different parties and use them as a little bit of a focus group for things that they would like to see. Our committee comes together and we curate these fun, exclusive, unique parties, but it's always interesting to hear what other people think. So I plan to use some of the input from the parties this past year as we create new parties. People said they were interested maybe in history or maybe something about cars or whatever it is. But it's important to take that feedback and listen to your supporters and try to incorporate their ideas where you can, because then they feel more bought into the process and the events, and it makes them more excited to attend.
That's amazing. And really, it's not just, like you were talking about, like Felicia mentioned earlier about, new committee people or new people coming in and balancing the old and the new. The events in and of themselves are, I don't want to say people, but maybe they're characters in a way. And the different types of events will bring in a a different type of energy. And, Felicia, I'd like to hear your take too, on, what is one thing you learned last year from, chairing that you're going to either tweak or modify or enhance this year?
Well, I think was a little bit more like drinking from a fire hose last year. And again, have gone to tons of the party, but had really not reflected on how many of those parties were going on because we were only able to do a few based on our own schedules. So I think, my perspective is much different because it was the first time on the committee, first time co-chairing. So I felt a little deer in the headlights, not for sure how all of this is coming together. And this year's, there's a lot more confidence. And I think when you have that confidence and you've seen how it works, you can support the people, the committee members in bringing forth those ideas and really understanding how that's going to work. Or what about this aspect? So it's much more of a stance of confidence in seeing how all of the backside works and then being able to be more supportive in that aspect to our committee members. So I love it because we're at different points, Araminta and I, so within this committee and then bringing that together. So I'm looking at it from this vision and she's looking at it from this vision, and those together create what we hope is going to be the best year ever. So
I'm sure it will be, but what I loved about your answer is the additional, and we'll go back to this again, it keeps coming up today, the institutional knowledge you gained through the Toast of the Town silo of the foundation. You are now more confident in bringing ideas forward and making necessary adjustments this time around. And I can see now why it's so great to have someone who was broadly involved with the organization come in as a co-chair with someone who was on the committee for a minute, who is now a co-chair, and how that fuses together so well. And Felicia, I want to follow up with you on one question because you brought it up earlier in the segment here, and that is you've had people that have been going to this event literally the entire 42 years it's been going on now. So what is one thing a person or an organization can do to create a devoted following for its annual gala or signature fundraiser?
I think it's that consistency, honestly, is knowing that you're going to know Toast of the Town puts on great events. And that is the key, is that they have consistently been good events that have been interesting. They're personal. And it always comes down to me, not every organization has this uniqueness or ability because of maybe different, like I was on the board of SAFE, so that we have a lot more hindrances about who we can show. So you go to this event, and let me tell you, who sells it is the students. These are remarkable young people who just have incredible life stories and what they're aiming for. So right there, I could say we could probably brown bag lunch something, and you put one of these superstar students in front of you, and you're going to say, I'm going to sign up for that brown bag again. Now, we don't have brown bags, but my point is they're consistently good parties that, again, going to someone's home, going to see a fun house out on the lake or in Westlake or unique styles. That's something that you don't get to do at a gala. That's something that you're not going to get to experience, or meeting an author and having 15 people where you're getting a really good Q&A. But every single time, who seals the show is the students. And the why here is just sells itself.
Absolutely. And Araminta, I'd love for you to share, your thoughts, especially from a committee perspective, because St. David's has had a very strong committee for many years, and you always do a good job of mixing old and new. But, talk about, what can an organization do to get people to continue to serve and continue to be on committees so that you can create those great parties and experiences that Felicia was talking about?
Sure, and I'll just kind of reiterate a little bit of what she said, but I think the students really do make the moment. And at every committee meeting, we focus on one of our scholars in a spotlight scenario. And that is our why. That's why we're doing it, to impact lives, to raise funds that the foundation will then double match us. And we can talk about that a little later. But to me, it's all about creating that mission moment. And helping people understand why we're here. And they're more willing to give when they hear from a student and that impact, that direct impact that their dollars are having, and to know that their funds donated are going to be matched. I think people are willing to dig a little bit deeper. We have a really devoted group of supporters for the St. David's Foundation and the Neil Kasserk Scholarship. And we always want to bring in new folks as well, because this is just such a great mission, and the work that's being done. It's worth having many more people in the community involved in it. But I think that's how you get people to keep coming back, is like Felicia said, they know they're getting a good product. When our sponsors sign up to support the foundation in the fall, they don't even know what the 20 parties are going to be. And they won't know until about April, when they do their preference sheets of which parties they'd like to attend. So you have to have a good product ready to go for people to keep coming back. And I think St. David's Foundation offers that every year.
They do. They do. And what I'm glad you brought up the match, because the match is so generous, because it's a 3-to-1 match, not a 2-to-1 match. And that really, people know their dollar or their dollars is going to go much further, than it would with a straight donation. That really kind of widens the impact. That's what I found so unique about this event, is it really shows, how a contribution can be amplified and multiplied, especially when you're working with a foundation. And, I'm glad you've both brought up the 20 parties, and I've got slightly different questions for each of you kind of about them. I'll direct the first one to Araminta, but talk about how the team curates and selects these 20 party experiences, because I know that Austin's a big city now, and there's lots of cool things, and there's lots of ideas being bandied about. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, I can't give all the secret sauce ingredients away, but I will say it is a very organic process. We have about 36 to 40 people on the committee every year. And like we've talked about, we've got folks who've been doing it for 42 years, and we have people that are brand new to the committee. But how it evolves is, these meetings are every 3 to 4 weeks, and we sit around a big table and have lunch and just brainstorm. We talk about who knows what's going on in town, what's coming up in the spring, who knows whose home would be a great venue. Just what are things that people would be interested in doing? What have we done in the past that was a great success that we might be able to tweak a little bit and replicate? So it really is organic in how it all comes together. And it's fascinating. Just at our meeting today, we confirmed 3 parties already to be organized, and a couple more in the pipeline. So each time we meet, we get a little further down the road, and by January, we'll have it all figured out.
So it's almost like building a house with these parties. If you think about it, you're kind of building it brick by brick. So it's this like big cohesive home.
Correct.
Absolutely. And Felicia, I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit about that, but I also want you to, elaborate on, you had mentioned earlier about there's just something really cool about being in a space at a home where you're talking with Brian Burrow about the gunfighter and there's
Yes.
20 other people around. There's just something really, really cool about that. So talk about the benefits as well of hosting these small, more intimate fundraising events.
And again, it's just the key aspect is when these parties take place, I think we're all used and very accustomed to going to a 500 plus gala, and you're really only able to interact with your table and maybe some tables around you. So you lose that sense of intimacy. And obviously, those programs work very well. So it's not, these is totally, it's an apple and an orange, but in this situation, you really get to visit with every single person there. You get to hear people's backgrounds. You actually have conversations that, again, lead to meaningful opportunities in lots of different scenarios. So I think that being in an individual's home, first of all, who's not excited about seeing a great home? I mean, from the architecture, how did they style it? What are we looking at? I mean, so there's just that component. Then you throw in food and wine and a really cool guest. And then again, you walk away saying, man, I got to meet some really interesting people. I got to hear a great program. And then again, I've gotten blown away by a young person who makes sometimes us that are in a little bit older, like, where was our motivation? I mean, these kids are so highly motivated. I walk away and I think, gosh, I haven't done enough with my life. It's just really, I really love the fact that you just get to have more of a relationship. It's much more of a relationship organization in that capacity.
Absolutely. And, back to the students, I just want to know, like, it's like, God, they're so well spoken. I'm like, gosh, I wish I grew up with a camera in front of me. Like, I wish I could have talked that way at 19. I mean, it's just, you're right, though. They blow you away with just how articulate and how passionate and how just composed employees are. It's really just phenomenal.
And because that's one thing that I really learned this time too, is how many of them become mentors themselves. And I didn't really, before as a guest to a party, I would introduce myself, hello, and thank them, but I really didn't have time to really sit down with that. So we always sit down with the person, the individual that's going to be the speaker for that evening, and you get to learn a lot more. So these students are like, yeah, my mentor talked at the party yesterday. So seeing this symbiotic relationship, and again, I think that's part of what's unique about this organization and these programs is that these students understand that help that they're receiving, they're giving back to their community, and then they're giving back to all of us who are going to need that healthcare at some point in our lives. So it really is this full circle that I didn't really appreciate until being on this side of the program.
Absolutely. So well said. And again, these are housed at like you've both mentioned, they often are held at private homes. And Araminta, I want to direct this next question to you just because I know you've been on the committee for a while and made lots of these asks. But what advice would you give to an organization looking to ask someone to host an event in their home? Because a lot of people are weird about who comes into their house, and you're inviting, let's say there's 20 people, they may know 6 but they don't know 14. So what advice would you give in terms of having someone say, yes, I will open my home to you and your organization?
Well, sure. First, you want to use your network or the network among the committee to identify a common friend or a connection. Wouldn't necessarily just make a cold call to somebody and say, "Hey, can we borrow your home?" So it's all about finding a friend with a connection and helping them get the door opened. But once you're in the home, you have to understand you're in someone's private space. You have to be very respectful of just their expectations, their desires, their needs, and be sure that what you're bringing in aligns with that. And that way you kind of cement that relationship. It can go south if you do something that the homeowner does not want or expect, or that type of thing. But when you have a successful event, we have many hosts, home hosts that are willing to have us back every year or every couple of years. because we've cemented a good relationship in the past. So we have our committee to thank for having a great network, but also the foundation has done a really good job of stewarding supporters and making them want to continue to help.
That's amazing. And there's actually a double yes. And I'm going to direct this next question to Felicia. So the double yes is that not only are you having it in someone's home, they are also hosting it through the hosted party model. And that helps you reduce the event overhead costs. So Felicia, share with us a little bit about that, because you're asking for a home, but then you're also asking for, something on top of that.
Right. So, and again, this is such a unique aspect of it because truly your sponsorship dollars go directly to the students. There is no cost for these parties in terms of what the organization is paying for. So each party has a set of hosts that are covering every cost of the party. So in this situation, if we're talking about somebody as a homeowner, they're donating their home, and the rest of the host, however many that is dividing up the cost of everything else. So it's very, in that sense, everybody has, skin in the game, and it's not a burden. It's not such a huge burden on any one individual. So you're coming at it as this group who are putting on this event, taking on that cost, so that these dollars go directly to the funds. Because so many times, again, the big galas, that's a huge overhead. So you're already, before you even sell a table, you're working from a negative standpoint on a cash flow basis. So these parties is what's so great, and I think that's what the home host sees. I am already giving to this organization in a big way. And most of them do put in their dollars as well, but they have that sense of how much more they're giving to this organization.
And what's really cool about that, like with the host, it kind of ties back to what Araminta was saying as well. When you have several people hosting a party, they're probably going to be inviting their own people that they can trust to behave at that person's home.
Well, that's a
So,
little different. So sponsorship is handled at the staff level.
oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
every sponsorship level has a different amount of tickets. So hosts do not get to pick who comes to those parties.
Oh, interesting.
That's all done by the level of giving and the time that you sign up. So they have this whole matrix, and that is a job in itself. I
Yes,
couldn't
it is.
even look at that spreadsheet if I wanted to. But it's based on the level of giving and when you sign up. And that is how you get to select what parties you go to. But I will say, in 42 years of doing this, there hasn't been that problem. Most of the people that are going to these events, right, are really doing it for the right reasons. So we just really haven't had any big issues with that.
And that's what makes it unique too, because you're meeting people you would not necessarily meet otherwise. You don't know who's necessarily coming to a party. So you're all kind of thrown into the mix together, and you grab a cocktail, glass of wine, and you strike up conversation with somebody new. And like Felicia said earlier, you make those connections, you have that conversation, you get to know other people in the community, and you all have a shared goal of supporting the foundation. And so you instantly have a connection point, and then it just blossoms from there.
Absolutely. And speaking of connections, and you both inferred to this during the conversation, but I want to address it to you, Araminta, and that is, talk about, getting high profile people to say yes, because you all have had over the years really some incredible, incredible people that will come for, and it's much different and ask for coming to a party for 40 or 50 versus 400 or 500. It's a very different ask. So what piece of advice, Araminta, would you give to an organization looking to have a celebrity or high profile person at their event, and say yes?
Well, what's unique about the foundation is, we do not pay speakers or special guests to come. And so we utilize our networks and the committee to identify who we want to be the special guests at those parties and how we can get to them and make those asks. So I think it kind of goes back to our committee model of really talking through and brainstorming ideas and putting things together, and who's willing to be the point on any given event. But I think anybody's probably more willing to say yes when a friend or an acquaintance is asking versus any kind of cold call. So again, I think it just goes back to utilizing the network, and we just have an incredible committee to help us do that.
And leveraging your network is so important. And,
Yeah.
it's the interconnectedness. Go ahead, Felicia.
Well, it's just the relationships. I mean, this is really a relationship model where everybody is really utilizing those relationships. And then it's very easy to, again, the guest or the special guest, the speaker, the whomever, they have all been really open to doing it. Again, a lot of it is more about scheduling of who you can get versus it being a no. It is much more on the sense, because there's been several people that it just hasn't worked out time-wise, because we always do this at the springtime, and sometimes artists are on the road and they have no control of that. So it's really more about, again, they're willing to do it. It's can we match it up with what our dates are as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So well said. And I know we're coming up on time here, but I want to end with this question. Araminta, I'd like for you to go first, and Felicia, you can have the last word. And given that you've all attended, hosted, committeed, chaired, you all will have some really good answers. I know it. So, and that is, what is one thing all successful fundraising events have in common?
Well, I think any successful event needs to inspire the attendees with a unique and fun experience.
Perfect. That's perfectly, that's like almost mic drop, Harvey. That was great.
I know. I honestly, the mic dropped. So do I need to answer
Boom.
that?
You can
Araminta
say
said it
ditto.
perfectly.
So is there anything you want to add, Felicia?
Not really. I mean, I think that Araminta just really encapsulated exactly what it is that makes events successful. So
We're gonna have to make that a hashtag, because that was
yeah.
just so good. We have to get the kids speaking this year to hashtag that at the end. Well, this has been an absolute delight. I can't thank you both enough for joining us today. Felicia, Araminta, thank you so much for being here and joining us.
Thank you. It's
Thanks,
our
Rob.
pleasure. Yeah.
Appreciate all you do for the community.
Absolutely. And the St. David's Foundation Toast of a Town will be a series of approximately 20 bespoke parties held during May of 2026 at various locations throughout the Austin, Texas area. For more information, please visit toastaustin.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.